Hello, I'm Sarah Marzilia. I'm a clinical psychologist, and I'd like to speak to you today about emotions and show you a way to deal with them so that difficult emotions are less intense and come up less frequently. When we experience something painful, it's human nature to try to avoid it. And the same goes for painful emotions. We all experience frustration, anger, rage, fear, terror, jealousy, envy, disgust, contempt, shame, all the time during our lives. But these are very painful emotions, so what we tend to do is try and avoid it in some way or another. We often try and distract ourselves, suppress it, tell ourselves that we don't really feel it, perhaps even tell ourselves off and beat ourselves up for feeling the emotion. We get into a struggle with the feeling itself. And this can cause difficulties on its own. And one of the main problems with the struggle is that it just doesn't work. The emotions don't go away. In fact, sometimes it seems like they come up more and more frequently and more intensely. It's almost as if emotions are like people. They just want to be heard. We need to find a way to experience and hear them, and then they often lose their intensity and frequency. So I'm going to show you today a way to work with the emotions to allow yourself to really experience them in the here and now. Before we do, just a couple of things to note. First of all, these emotions are painful, but they will not harm you. By getting in touch with them, what you'll probably find is initially they become more intense, and that can feel really quite uncomfortable, but it won't hurt you. The worst that will happen is you'll feel more emotional for a short period of time, and then, as with any emotional feeling, it will shift and change and go. The second thing to note is that although you can use this technique with very distressing memories, such as memories of a traumatic incident that you might have been through, it's not advisable to do so whilst following me today with this video. I would suggest you do that work with a therapist that you trust, who has the skills to help you contain those very intense emotions. So what I suggest you do is think about a time over the last couple of days or week when you noticed a difficult emotion coming up for you. It could be driving the car. Perhaps you got very frustrated with another motorist. Or maybe you noticed a bit of anxiety about something going on in your life, perhaps at work or with your family. Or perhaps you realized that you felt a bit envious or jealous of someone in your life for something that they have that you don't have. It doesn't really matter what emotion you choose. Just pick one and we can start working with that for you to get a sense of the kind of skills that I'm talking about today. So the approach I'm going to use with the emotions today is a combination of acceptance and commitment therapy, or ACT, which is a third wave cognitive therapy, and energy psychology, which is psychological therapy that uses techniques from the Chinese energy system. And our main aim here is just to allow the emotion to come up, to experience it, and notice what happens. So first of all, get yourself into a place where you feel that you can comfortably do this work. Try to make sure you're not likely to be interrupted. Put your phone on silent and make sure you've got the time, 10 minutes or so, to do this work. It's best if you're comfortable. Sitting or lying down is fine. Now take yourself back into the situation where you felt this emotion. Where were you? Try to think about what it felt like being there. And what were you doing? What happened to trigger off this emotion? take a few moments, close your eyes if you like, and just think about yourself back in that situation and invite that emotion to come up now and be experienced for a few moments. Now, it might seem counterintuitive, but here we're deliberately activating the emotion that you felt. And just notice whether you've been able to activate it. Sometimes it's more difficult than others, and that's fine. And if it is, you might want to pause the video here and think about another scenario that's a little bit easier to get in touch with. And if you have got in touch with this feeling, just notice what it feels like to let yourself experience this emotion in the here and now. Have a scan through your body, from the top of your head, through your forehead, to your neck, your shoulders, your chest, your stomach, all the way down through your pelvis, to your thighs, down to your feet and back up again, scanning all the way through your body. And notice, where do you feel this emotion in your body? You might find that you have several places with sensation in them, and that's fine. Just notice that. Perhaps you feel it in your chest and your stomach. Perhaps it's in your head and your shoulders. Or perhaps it's nowhere at all in your body. You can't get this wrong. How you're experiencing the emotion is just fine. And if it is somewhere in your body, put your hand on where you think the center is. Stay in touch with it. Put your mind's eye on this sensation. Ask yourself, what does it feel like here? Is it tight? Is it a pain? Is it aching? Is it sharp? What's the sensation you're feeling like here? And however intense it feels, remind yourself it cannot harm you. It's just an emotion. And if it is somewhere in your body, make some room around it. Allow yourself to really feel it. As if you could let go all around it. Now ask yourself some other questions about the feeling. Does it have a colour at all? Is there any kind of shape to it? And once again, if it doesn't have a colour or a shape, that's okay. It's just how you're experiencing the emotion. It's not wrong. And if it does, just notice about that colour and shape. What kind of shade is it? Have a look closely at the shape. What's it like? If you were to reach out and touch it in your mind's eye, what would that feel like? Does it have a texture to it? Now just breathe with it. Your job here is just to stay in touch with this emotion, just as it is, just allowing it to do whatever it wants to do. You're not trying to get rid of it or shift and change it. You're not trying to analyze it or understand it. You're just sitting with it and breathing with it. Almost as if you could breathe into it and out from it, letting it do whatever it needs to do. Just keeping your mind's eye on it. And then just ask yourself, what's it like now? Is it still in the same place in my body? Or has it moved? And if it's moved, just follow it with curiosity and openness. What's the sensation like now? Has it changed? Or is it the same? Does it feel more or less intense? Keep breathing with it and staying in touch with it in this mindful, observing way. And if you haven't closed your eyes, you might want to do so now just to get that little bit more in touch with it. What does it feel like now? If it feels okay, imagine you could reach out and touch it in your mind's eye and get to know it in that way. If that doesn't feel okay, don't do it. That's okay as well. And if you are engaging with it in that way, just be really gentle with it. Be kind and compassionate to it. This is a part of you that hasn't been heard for a while, and it needs to be handled kindly and gently with love. Now just check in with it again. For some emotions, just getting in touch with it like this is enough. The intensity starts to come down, it starts to relax, it feels heard and listened to. It may even go completely, and that's great. It's lovely to know emotions can calm down just by being heard. And if it hasn't calmed down, if it's still there in some shape or form, let's just sit with whatever's left of it. Just noticing again the colour, the shape, the texture, the temperature if it has one. What does it feel like, this emotion? Where is it in your body? Just breathing with it. Now, if it's still here, why not try to gently ask it a question in a very kind and respectful way? Ask it, what do you want? And give it some room to give you an answer. Sometimes its answer might be in a verbal form. It might say, I want. Sometimes it might show you a picture or shift and change in how it feels. And you may get a sense of what it wants from that. And sometimes it won't have an answer for you, and that's okay. And if it does have an answer for you, just reflect that answer back to it gently. The answer doesn't need to be right or true. It's just what this emotion is saying to you. So don't feel like you need to be persuaded of anything by it, or that you need to persuade the emotion of anything yourself. Just reflect back the communication you got from it as simply as possible. I hear that you want. And notice how it feels if it's communicated something with you and you've shown that you've heard it. How does it respond? And keep breathing with whatever's left of it. And if it's gone, great. Just enjoy the feeling of the space where that more difficult feeling was. And if it's still here, check in with it again. Is there anything else you want to communicate with me? If there is, just reflect that you've heard that too. When we're working directly with the emotions, it's a very intuitive space. So if there's anything you feel that you want to do with the emotion, just try it. As long as you try it in a kind, caring, compassionate way. Your subconscious will soon show you if it's not the right thing to do. And if it is, it might help. So if there's anything left of the emotion now, let's just do a couple of things with it. First of all, I want you to imagine that you have a deepest part of your heart. And this is the source of unconditional love. And from this deep part of your heart, I want you to send love to whatever's left of this emotion. As if you could send a breath of deepest love from the heart to this feeling. And I'm just going to talk to this little bit of left emotion, if there is any, and let it know how grateful I am for this part of you to come up and communicate with us today, how helpful that's been, and how grateful we are for this feeling, for carrying all these difficult emotions for you for so long. I'm also letting it know that if it's ready to leave now, it's welcome to go. Its job here is done. Okay, so just have a scan through your body and notice whatever's left. Notice what it's like to have been in touch with this part of you, this emotion that maybe you'd been avoiding for a while. And just recognize if there is any of it left. If it still feels a bit uncomfortable, that's okay. It will wax and wane like all emotions do over the next minutes. And if it's gone, just notice what it feels like to have a space where that feeling was, and to get a sense of a deeper sense of peace. If you've enjoyed today, or you have any comments about the experience of going through this mindful observation of emotions, then please do feel free to comment in the space below, or visit my website and let me know through that, www.innertruthpsychology.co.uk.